Welcome back to the Critics Corner. I'm Andrew Branca with the Waxahachie Sun, and I'm here along with my colleague and associate.
David Dunn with Southlake Style Magazine. How y'all doing today?
I'm doing fine, David. How about yourself?
Tired. I thank God for the weekend. I'm basically gonna sleep through the whole thing.
Kind of sounds like my weekend. But we're here to talk about one of the movie I was really excited about coming out, and the first one I've probably seen in a theater type setting since mid-March, possibly.
Pretty much, yeah.
Christopher Nolan's Tenet, which I'm very excited about. Denzel Washington's son plays the lead character in this, which he was fantastic. He plays the character known as the protagonist. I believe his name is John Washington, correct?
Yes, sir. It's John David Washington, and I do think it's funny, like you mentioned, his character's name is a fun little like wink from Christopher Nolan to the audience, like, "Oh, this is the protagonist." Ha ha ha. You know, it's kind of clever.
No, I thought it was a great film, and before we get into the review, here is the trailer for Tenet. So sit back and enjoy.
All I have for you is a word. Tenet. It'll open the right doors, some of the wrong ones too. Use it carefully.
To do what I do, I need some idea of the threat we face.
As I understand it, we're trying to prevent World War III.
I'm not saying Armageddon here.
No. Something worse.
I gather you have an interest in a certain Russian national.
Why just bring me in?
You really want to know? He can communicate with the future.
Time travel.
No. Inversion.
Aim it and pull the trigger. You're not shooting the bullet, you're catching it.
Whoa.
Well, I've seen too much.
Well, we'll try and keep up.
Your duty transcends national interests. This is about survival.
Seems bold.
Bold, I'm fine with. I thought you were going to say nuts.
This is where our worlds collide.
How would you like to die?
Old.
You chose the wrong profession.
Well, that from here.
Hasn't happened yet.
There are people in the future who need us. Who need Tenet.
We need to save them here and now.
This reversing the flow of time. Doesn't us being here now mean it never happened? You want to crash a plane?
But not from the air. No, it's so dramatic.
Well, how big a plane?
That part is a little dramatic.
What are your thoughts on this new film coming out here?
Yeah, man. So Tenet, like you said, is the newest film by Christopher Nolan. Stars John David Washington, Robert Pattinson, Kenneth Branagh. Really big cast, really solid cast. It kind of feels like Christopher Nolan has kind of dipped away a little bit from the science fiction setting for a minute. Obviously, his most recent film was 2017's Dunkirk. And now he's kind of dipping back into the science fiction kind of genre. He's directed other movies like Inception, Interstellar, obviously did the Dark Knight trilogy. So this is kind of a little bit of an area of familiarity for Christopher Nolan. And it's nice to see him inhabit this space once again. The movie introduces a very unique concept called inversion, which basically, instead of objects, moving regularly forward in time like they do, they would move backwards. So instead of dropping a pen, the pen would come up to your hand, all ridiculous, crazy things like that. And he uses this, concept to bring really dizzying, spectacular, mind-bending, sort of mind-blowing action sequences in this movie. When I say that I haven't seen an action movie like Tenet before, I really haven't. There's quite a few times where you're watching a movie, you're just going, whoa! It feels like it's just launching you through a wormhole, like just completely flipping all of your expectations and literally your, vision on its head.
I totally agree with that. It reminded me a lot of when I saw The Matrix for the first time. As kind of not that they're dealing with computers or sentient robots or anything, but just that kind of science fiction feel where you almost feel like Alice being dragged down the rabbit hole into this new world that's filled with everything's all unexpected about what is going to happen, and you don't know what's going to happen next from scene to scene. And I like being surprised like that. It really keeps you on your toes. And at some points in the film, he was giving you so much story to just absorb at once. It felt like I was drinking out of a fire hose. And it's a film I'm gonna have to watch a couple of times just to kind of absorb it all. But it was great. I really loved Kenneth Branagh in the film. I really haven't seen him play kind of a bad guy before. You've seen him in a lot of good roles, good guy type of roles. One of his early stuff with Henry V, him and the Valkyrie with Tom Cruise. Just over the years, he's done a lot of variety, and I've always really admired him as an actor, from his Shakespearean work to Swing Kids back in the early 90s. So just a really
Kenneth Branagh
actor.
Yeah, Kenneth Branagh is a very versatile actor. And I will say, out of all the performances in this movie, there isn't a bad performance in the movie anywhere at all. Everyone is great, from John David Washington's kind of a stoic approach to things to Robert Pattinson's just kind of sly swagger. All of the characters are really good and they service the roles they need to. But Kenneth Branagh is especially sinister and especially chilling. I kind of second that it was Kenneth Branagh, just because he was just so intimidating, so monstrous, so just kind of sick, he was a great villain in the movie, and he really drove a lot of the force forward. And now that you mention it, it is interesting. Really, a lot of Christopher Nolan's movies, this is one of the few where it is villain centric. And now when I say that, obviously it's pioneered by its very creative and elaborate premise, for sure. But whereas movies like the Dark Knight trilogy are kind of defined by Batman's relationship to his villains, other movies like Dunkirk or Interstellar or Memento are more kind of euphoric in their conflict and in their challenge. Kenneth Branagh is much more direct than the threat in Christopher Nolan's other movies, and that makes it very, very interesting to watch.
No, I would agree with that. One thing I really admired about this movie is there was a couple of different cameos in this film that really made it work really well. One was my favorite. He's been in other Christopher Nolan films. Was Michael Caine. He just had a small he's not even on screen for about 5 minutes, but it's a memorable 5 minutes, and he gets a couple laughs in there too, and it really helps to moments like that in this film really help to break up the kind of serious action type drama that's happening, along the way. And moments like that, I thought that they were very helpful to keep the audience really engaged in that, and they were also kind of fun.
They absolutely were, and not just the cameos in this movie, but really Nolan's writing as a whole. He's really good at breaking up moments of high octane action, really explorative character depth, much more elaborate scenes of plot progression and delivery. But he's really good at breaking up those serious moments, like you said, with really necessary snippets of comedy. They're not frequent in this movie. They're not like, you're going to be laughing the whole time. But every now and then, he just puts these really clever one-liners in there that just really breaks things up, brings a little bit more lightheartedness to the scene, and just really kind of keeps you engaged with the movie. He's a great filmmaker and a great writer because of his ability to do that. I will say, though, your analogy of drinking through a fire hose is very, very appropriate for this movie, because it is a lot to digest. And, keeping in theme with Christopher Nolan's other movies, it's a lot to process, a lot to kind of feed into your mind, a lot to understand. But once you do understand, it is a very rewarding experience. Christopher Nolan does a really good job at keeping his audience engaged and really kind of giving them their due for going through the ride with him.
And I would say the other thing, I really appreciate about him, not only does he write the scripts he directs and produces, but he doesn't use a lot of CGI in his films. He's very big on actual effects. And, spoiler alert, this has been, out on the internet for quite a while, but he crashed a full-size 747 in the film to make to make it more real. And I was like, dude, that's just kind of a boss move, just to look what I did. I bet you can't do this in your movie. And it was like, unlike directors like Michael Bay, who just use explosions way too much, and South Park makes fun of him in an episode, which is, if you haven't seen that, watch that. It's funny. It's on YouTube. But no one uses these realistic, real effects for a purpose. They are carefully planned out. It's not overly done. And I always admire that about him.
I agree with that too. And unlike Michael Bay, who deserves every bit of the ridicule he gets, who just, blows up over and over and over again, just for exploitative effect. Christopher Nolan instead uses practical effects and action to complement the story he's telling, not have it be the key appeal. I think that's something filmmakers as amateurish as Michael Bay fail to recognize. I will say there's one scene in this movie, I'm not going to spoil it, but there's one scene where the action felt a little removed from its characters. Like in Dunkirk, you have a very clear presence of the enemy that the British soldiers are fighting. The Dark Knight trilogy, obviously, Batman has a very clear distinction of the enemies he's fighting. You have Inception and the projections in their dream. Clearly defined enemies, clearly defined threats. There's one scene in particular where the threat is, I wouldn't say it's missing, but it's kind of it's more implied than anything else. And at first this bothered me, but then I thought about it because I was like, wait a minute, what would you even do with the threat under the rules that this film sets? I'm not going to elaborate on it much beyond there, but due to the mechanics that this movie introduces, one person goes forward through time if they're not inverted, but another person goes backwards in time if they are inverted. It at times can just lead to, just some messy thoughts. And I'm like, I don't know how you would carry out this scene with that mechanic introduced. But that's, as far as complaints go, that's the only one I really have.
But I would say most of the time he's pretty good about continuity and keeping things in check. I would agree with you. It can get a little muddled in a few areas, but this movie's 2.5 hours. You're going to have that, But the one thing I will say before we give a rating is I know a lot of people want to go to the movies, and if you go to a regular theater, just be careful going out. Me and you went together to see this film at a drive-in. A lot of drive-ins are doing are coming back, in popularity unfortunately because of the pandemic. But it's a safer way to see a new release right now, and I definitely encourage social distancing, and it's a good way to practice that. You're safe. You're in your car. You're keeping a good distance from everybody else, and you still get to go see something you really love and enjoy. So I would definitely encourage that responsibility.
Sure, for sure.
So with this film here, what's your what do you give it here?
Solid 8. I went back and forth bumping this between an 8 or a 9, but as you said, the fire hose nature of the plot, of the premise, of the action, I do think it could be a little overwhelming, but that doesn't take away from it at all. It's still a very unique experience, still a very exciting experience, and really, it's kind of quintessential Christopher Nolan. If you like Christopher Nolan's other movies, you are going to enjoy Tenet just as much.
Yeah, I give it about an 8.5, just kind of for those same reasons. Do I think some of it could be trimmed maybe a little bit? Yeah, but more for the fact that there was a lot of information just to take in one sitting, and as my grandpa would say, the mind can only stand what the seat can endure, and being in a seat for 2.5 hours, there's a lot to take in, and you can get easily distracted. And even if your attention is fully on the film, you're still going to miss stuff.
Pretty much, yeah. And like you said, I think you could have shaved a little bit of minutes from the last action sequence in particular, but again, still rewarding experience, still a very fun experience. If you go to this theater, if you go to see this movie, prepare to have your mind blown, because Christopher Nolan's very good at doing that.
Okay, well, I think that will wrap it up for today's edition of the Critics Corner. So if you have any thoughts, questions, suggestions, criticisms, please bring it on. Send us an email. Email us. Leave a message in the video comments below. We'll be glad to look at that and take suggestions or anything. So just enjoy the movies, enjoy them responsibly, and remember to have some fun. So I guess I will see you next week then, right?
See y'all next week. Yep.
Okay.
See y'all at the movies. Wear a mask.